Welcome to Here Where You Belong, your go-to podcast for exploring belonging with your host and belonging expert, Dea Irby. We are thrilled to have you join us. Together, we'll dive into the depths of what it means for each of us to find our own place in the world, whether it's within our communities, our relationships, or within ourselves. Today's episode is meant to inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. So grab a cozy spot and settle in. Welcome to Here Where You Belong.
Hello, awesome belongers. Welcome home to Here Where You Belong podcast. Today's guest believes strong leadership is not just about making decisions. It's about creating environments where people know they truly matter. I'm Dea, your host. Get ready to be inspired and blessed. Help me welcome today's guest, Reverend Kevin T. Taylor. Hey, Kevin.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, and hello to all of your listeners.
I'm so glad we found each other and you are here today because I can't wait. But let me tell you a little more about our guest. Reverend Kevin T. Taylor is an executive strategist, pastor, founder of Tailored, I saw what you did there, T-A-Y, Tailored Stewardship Institute, and award-winning author of A Charge to Keep. Kevin works at the intersection of leadership, stewardship, governance, and the future of institutional responsibility in an AI-enabled world, helping leaders navigate complexity, strengthen trust, and make disciplined decisions that create lasting impact. But at the heart of his work is a powerful belief. Belonging is built through trust, dignity, and systems that help people feel seen, valued, and safe enough to contribute fully. His upcoming book, A Charge to Keep, A Leader's Decision Companion, continues that mission by helping leaders navigate consequential decisions with clarity and integrity. Kevin, any additions, subtractions, or corrections from that introduction?
No, ma'am, thank you. But can I bring you on the road with me as I'm sharing so that you can do that introduction again? This is great. Thank you.
Did I hit the target?
Yes,
Excellent.
ma'am.
Wait, I want to honor my guest. You can be anywhere else, but you're here recording with me, and I appreciate that. Well, as you know, this is a podcast about belonging, and I have invited you on here to share your story of belonging, personally, how you found it, or how you provide belonging for other people. So I may ask a clarifying or a follow-up question, but the mic shares, go for it.
Well, again, thank you for having me. If it's okay, I'd like to tell two stories: a story about myself, but also as a pastor, and in this world that we live, how I'm trying to make belonging real for others. So on the personal side, so I've been in ministry almost 30 years, and in the pastoral part of that ministry for close to 17. And in that, there was a time that I was pastoring. I took a break, and I thought that I wasn't going to be able to return to it. I thought that at that time I had divorced, and that I thought that the pastorate was too much. That I became unattractive to women as a leader. Now, many people will say, but pastors, they always get, and yes, there are people who want to be a first lady, but I was not interested in the groupie, so to speak. I'm interested in developing a relationship with someone. And so I was like, well, no, to have my name on the appointment means that I got to be in church every Sunday. So I can't go on vacation when I want to. And it means that I can't do the things that I would want to be able to do outside of the work. And so I had made up in my mind that I was not going to go back into the pastoral ministry, that I was going to instead be an executive pastor. So I could do all the administrative work and the other person could preach. And then I was free to do what I wanted to be able to do because the assignment was theirs. It wasn't mine. And so I told myself that story for a long time. And I can remember very clearly when I moved to Los Angeles, but from Los Angeles to New York, I can remember saying that same thing at the church that I was at. And a friend of mine was, was like, you're supposed to be pastoring. I'm saying, no, 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 I'm good being an executive. That's what I want to do is executive leadership. And I'm a big fan of The Lion King. This is going somewhere, okay? So it is my favorite Disney movie. And when I'm in New York, I got a chance to see the Broadway play. And I'm telling you, it is something to behold. I mean, I was sitting on the front row, and when the animals came down, tears in my eyes. I mean, it was just great. So I've seen it multiple times. But for whatever reason, on this particular day, the scene where Simba is in the wilderness and he's looking into the water hole, and he is reflecting on his life, and he sees his dad's image. So he sees Mufasa, and Mufasa says, Simba, you are more than what you have become. And when I tell you that I had seen that line on the cartoon, I had seen the play and I knew what that was coming. But for whatever reason, on that particular day, that hit me upside the head that you are more than what you have become. And so, as successful as you are and the work that you are doing, you know that you are more than what you become. And this is also a part of the belonging. Then I felt like, that, well, no. I'm not like the other preachers. I'm not like the person over here who does this, and I'm not like I don't, and particularly in ministry, like your geographic ties matter. And so like I'm now in New York City, and like I wasn't born and raised there. I didn't so and so didn't ordain me. So and so, was not my father in the ministry. I'm an outsider. And so I don't feel like I belong. But I was talking to one of my extended family members, and we're having this conversation in New York, and I'm making this case to her, and she is a very stoic, wise, she's a PhD in math, right? And so we're talking, and and through the conversation, I began to realize that I'm not supposed to be those people. God called me, and the gifts that I have are the gifts
Oh,
that God
whoa.
wanted to be able to use. And so I just need to do what I need to do in order to be effective. And later on in pastoral ministry, so that was 2012 that I came back into the pulpit. So for the past 14 years, I've
Yeah.
done this. But that said, the bishop that I had 2 bishops ago, we were talking in the car, and I put this line in my book. He says, we have a lot of people who are trying to be duplicates when God has called us to be originals. And like that was a reinforcement of that earlier conversation many, many years ago. But like the same principle is that we are trying to be something that we see or we want to emulate, when in fact God has gifted us individually, and he could have called anybody, but he called you, and he called you, and he called you for your gifts and for your talents and the things that he has given to you. And so you don't have to be somebody else. You just need to be you, and the best you that you can be following him. And so that is I felt like an outsider for many reasons, but I belong because God said that I belong. And it took Mufasa saying to Simba, you are more than what you have become.
I love that. Uh, from a secular standpoint, Judy
Hmm.
Garland said, why be a second-rate version of someone else when you
There
can
you
be a
go.
first-rate version of yourself? And then I just had this vision of, we are created the way God created us. He prepared us to do the works that He created us to do,
Hmm.
right? And it's like a um, a Phillips screwdriver trying to turn a flathead
Hmm.
flathead screw. Why are we trying to do somebody else another tool's job when God created us to be to fit in the job that He created for us? That's a lot. I almost cried when you were talking about Lion King.
Hmm.
That is, and it's what keeps people from being open to being who their God created them to be.
Well, and so I think it's an excellent question, and I think that it is that we do not feel that we are adequate enough in order to be able to be called, and we're doing this Bible study series, and the speaker or the presenter last evening talked about the idea that you can't sin enough to outpace God's grace. That nothing that you can do can exceed God's grace. And of course, the Apostle Paul says, shall we continue in sin that grace should abound? Forbid it. So it's not that we should continue in sin. It is instead that it doesn't matter what you think that you haven't done or isn't inadequate as you are in your own mind. God doesn't see any of those things, right? Like his ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. As high as the heavens are from the earth, and that is the magnitude of the difference in his thought process and ours. God knew the end from the beginning, and so as a result, like who am I to stand and to be able to say? But look, we've seen it not just personally. We've seen Moses, say, but why send me? I have a speech impediment. I can't do it. Why, David, like you're going to depict the puniest of the sons, and he's going to be the one that's going to fight the Philistine. Really? Like that's what's going to happen? Or Jesus, as you come through Jerusalem, like you could have a chariot of horses, and you pick a donkey that has never been ridden before. Like what is? And yes, it was prophesied, but the point I'm making is that we begin to allow ourselves to feel that we are unworthy and so unworthy that we cannot be used by God. And instead, thinking that with all of our faults, with all of our challenges, God still sees our hearts and he still meets us where we are. And so to your listening audience who might be wrestling with the call, to the persons who feel like, no, God's not talking to me, for people who feel like, that's not in my heart. That's just, I got indigestion. If that's what you are feeling, I'm saying to you that God is speaking to you and that you too can be used by him. Now, look, it might not be in the same way that he's using me. That's okay because whatever your gifts are what the kingdom needs. And so when we look at like 1 Corinthians 12 and we talk about the body of Christ, like
Mhm.
the head can't say to the toe, I don't need you, and the ear can't say to the hand, I don't need you. So if you are the hand, you be the best hand. If you're the nose, be the nose. If you are the belly button, be the belly button. But whatever your role is, you are needed in the body of Christ.
Absolutely. I am loving that. But here's the perspective that it's good that we feel inadequate because it, like David going against Goliath, hello, it had to be God.
Mhm.
So if we're willing to step out and do what we're called to do, even when we don't feel adequate, that even brings more glory to God.
Right. And isn't that what we are made for and designed for? Isn't that what the purpose is to bring glory to God, not glory to ourselves, not glory to our family, not glory to our jobs, but glory to God. And
Yeah.
so he's going to get the glory. And so, he the spiritual things are as rubbish to the knowledgeable, right? But the reality being that whatever God is doing, we want to be a part of it. And it doesn't it make it even greater that God would use someone with a speech impediment? Doesn't make it even greater that someone who was a harlot as the children of Israel were coming through and hid the spies, but that she would be part of Jesus's bloodline, right? Boaz's mom, and Boaz and Ruth, like isn't it amazing that God would take a teenage mother and bring about his son? Isn't it amazing that he would use the shepherds to be able to announce his coming? Isn't it amazing that God would use individuals like Peter, Pentecost Sunday's coming, right? Peter, who had denied him 3 times, right, to be able to still stand and profess his name and for 5,000 souls to be brought. Like so God does take the least of these and can transform them into the ordinary into the extraordinary, if only we're willing to step out on faith, if only we're willing to be able to say yes, Lord, if only we're willing to say, like Isaiah said, here am I, send me.
I love it. I mean, imagine uh, when you think about the grace of God and the boundless amount of it, imagine going, I don't know, to the beach and being told, okay, drink up the ocean.
Hmm.
No, not going to happen. Go to the top of the mountain and breathe up all the air.
Right.
Not going to happen. You will have gotten to the end of God's grace when you have finished breathing in uh, all the air or drinking up all the ocean. Not going to happen.
Not gonna happen.
Okay, awesome. You have a second story.
I do. And so, and this comes from the pastoral perspective of what it means to belong. So I pastor the oldest Black church in upstate New York, founded nearly 200 years ago. So to our 200th anniversary will be 2028. And so, so I've been here now for 5 years, and one of the things that is very clear to me is that our worship space is not adequate for the changing needs of our congregation. And so I know that I'm in for the fight of my life in being able to convince the congregation that we're going to need to be able to investigate the possibility of moving to a new location. Now, you should know that our church was a stop on the Underground Railroad, that we have documented evidence that Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and Phyllis Wheatley had been in our sanctuary and in our churches, and that the freed slaves or the enslaved individuals would harbor in our church, and that there was a path that led from where we are in Albany to the Hudson River for people to be able. So this is a documented lineage. And for many people in the congregation, this is where grandmama and mama and did the work, and they saved the coins and they did all of those things. But the reality is that the stairs that we have even cause our existing seniors difficulty to be able to rise. And so, yes, we have a fellowship hall where you can watch the service, on the lower level while service is going on upstairs. But that's not the same thing as those same people who have given their blood, sweat, and tears that they got to sit in their wheelchair in the fellowship hall instead of coming upstairs. And so, we need a church that has that
Handicap
doesn't
accessible.
all
Yeah.
it is handicap accessible. We need more restrooms than we have right now. We need classroom space where we can do the type of educational outlook that we have. We are one of the top sites for food distribution in the county and in the capital region, and our kitchen is just not adequate enough to be able to meet the needs. And yeah, we expanded the kitchen, only a couple of years ago, but like we need more space. But more importantly, and this is the belonging part, more importantly, not just the accessibility for our seniors, but we have families who have children with differing needs than perhaps the needs than when we were growing up. And so where is the space for the sensory room where the autistic child can, still be able to come and to be able to worship, and the parent doesn't have to feel like they're disrupting the service? Where is the cool down room or the nursing mom's room where families would be able to come? Where are the classroom spaces where children who have different learning modalities will be able to come and they can experience God in the way that works for them? And so the days of everybody just sitting in church and being still, those days are over. And if we want to be able to have a viable church for the future, we have to think about redesigning our structures. And so so that's like this on the church side. But I spent my time in education, and like we've got schools today that do not have air conditioners. And so, in the South, that the students get out in May but like not just for the agrarian calendar, that's another story for another day, but like there's not air conditioning. And so like that is oppressive heat to be able to be learning in. I mean, parts of New York City don't have air. And so, what are we going to do to ensure that we are providing the environment where people can feel welcome? Right? Not just that, that they can get into their pew on time and a place to park, but like I can bring my family and I don't have to feel like I am being ostracized because my special needs child can get with the person who is insulin dependent can get a little snack. The person who, is the parent who has a child who has sound sensitivity can be in a space where they too can experience God. Like that's where the world is going. The question is, as a church, are we doing that same thing? And parents with special needs demand that of their school districts, right? That's what an IEP is, right? An
Right.
individualized education plan. That's what that is. But we don't have IEPs for the church, and we don't have how the church should respond to these needs.
I would guess that there's like you and maybe two other pastors that have thought this through. That's amazing. And we could talk about this for an eternity, likely,
Mhm.
but we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And And we'll be right back with the fabulous Kevin Taylor. See you soon. Hey there. Isn't my guest amazing? So glad you joined us today. In this world that often feels disconnected, building community and fostering belonging are essential. That's why I created this podcast, to bring inspiring people to you, to encourage you to create that sense of belonging and community, no matter where you are. If you're being blessed by my guest, and we have some more, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You know who needs to hear this. Stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. Now, back to our amazing guest. And we are back with my guest today, Kevin Taylor, the awesome Reverend Kevin Taylor. And if you've heard any of my episodes, I had 3 favorite questions, and he gets to answer those same 3 questions. And the first question is, drumroll, what do you consider is your greatest accomplishment? Now, you've got a whole bunch of them, and it may be hard to pick, but what do you have to say? Your greatest accomplishment?
So I appreciate the question, and there is so much that I have to be proud of. I'm a father, a pastor, a husband. I've been a commencement speaker. I'm a published author. But if I had to name my greatest accomplishment, it is helping leaders and institutions move from instability to alignment. It is helping people to build systems, to strengthen decisions, and to create an impact that outlasts them. So when we look at the scripture where Paul was asked, who is greater, me or you or Apollos, and Paul's response is, one waters. I'm sorry, one plants, another waters, but God gives the increase. And so I'm just thankful that God has given me the opportunity to plant and in other situations to be able to water. But I believe fully that God is going to get the increase. And so one of the things that I often say is that I might not be here to enjoy the shade of the tree that I am planting or to enjoy the fruit of the tree that is being planted. But when the fruit comes, when the shade is experienced, someone will be thankful that I did what I did to till the soil, to plant the seed, to water, but that God is going to be the one who is going to get the glory, and that I can be content in knowing that I did my job to the best of my ability and that my impact will outlast me.
That's beautiful. And it's future thinking instead of past thinking.
Mhm.
Like, this is what I did, this is what I did. But you're thinking, this is what I'm doing for the future. This is what
Mhm.
is going to happen in the future. That's wonderful. I want to take a minute to ask about your book. You've got a new one coming out that
Mhm.
is a companion. The first one that you wrote, what inspired you? When did you release that? When did you
So
publish
that
that?
was A Charge to Keep was
Yeah.
released in October 2025, and the subtitle is Immutable Leadership Lessons from the C-Suite to the Pulpit. So the book, there are a lot of leadership books on the market that are about theory. This has been my lived experience. So I give 12 practical examples or 12 practical leadership lessons, excuse me, with examples that come from the church as well as from the C-suite. And so you don't have to be a business leader to read the book. You don't have to be a person of faith to read the book. But you should find in the examples, you should find something that is resonant for you. And my premise is that leadership is lonely, but that you don't have to feel alone, and that you don't have to check your faith at the boardroom door, and you don't have to check your business acumen at the church door. That when we talk about bringing our whole selves to work, God has gifted you in the areas that He has gifted you in, and that those contribute to who you are. So show up with that in mind as you are doing the work.
This goes back to what we talked about the first half
Hmm.
about being who, don't try to be somebody else, be who God created you to be. And if your work that he prepared for you to accomplish is in C-suite, then go do it. If it's in the
Mhm.
church, then go do it,
Yeah.
and be who you were created to be. So pick one or two of your favorite chapters.
So I think the point that you're making is right, because that's what Mordecai told Esther, right? Is that you are, you're here for a reason, for such a time as this, and so
Mhm.
you want to use this opportunity to be to wisely. But I so the in the chapters, so one of them is about being intentionally diverse. That the more types of people that we have at the table with differing ideas, the better the decisions are. So intentionally diverse, and so in a patriarchy-led society, being inviting people who are women and persons of color to be able to at the table makes a difference. Another one talks about the idea that when you are facing opposition, pushback, you have a great idea, and you are so excited about it. God gave it to you, and you present it to the people, and it falls flat. And you're thinking, well, I got to recalibrate. I gotta change what I did. I must have said something wrong because nobody said amen. Nobody clapped for me and came to me as I thought they would. That's okay. That might just be evidence that you are doing the right thing because people are mourning the loss of what was. And so not everybody's going to be happy about the change that is bringing about. And so, like I'm telling you now, when I announce that we need to begin thinking about a new church, it's just not going to go over well. But that doesn't make it the wrong choice. It just
Right.
means that that's part of the process. So you got to trust the process. Trust the person who called you, not the person who is, in your face in the moment. And so that's another chapter. But then getting to how the second book came around, there's a chapter that is about one of my experiences with a document I call the recommendation chart. And so it lays out, the decision that we made, and with that recommendation chart came the idea for the second book that there are 12 decisions that leaders make over the course of their leadership, and how do we approach them? And so, what are the ways in which we are documenting the pros and the cons of our decisions? What are the ways that we're using AI to pressure test our decisions? So, not to say and make the choice for us, but like, I came up with these five pros and I came up with these five cons. What am I missing? And for AI to be able to pressure test, what, this makes sense. You probably didn't do this, but here are four or five other ideas that you might have thought of. Oh, okay. And then to be able to write the decision down and move forward, but then to come back and revisit it in 6 months or a year, and to be able to say, here's the decision. Here's the information that we had at the time. Here's what we thought was going to happen, but here is what happened, so that we are then calibrated for the next major decision. And so one might say, well, why does that matter? Because when we think back on decisions, we think back through the lens of what we remember or what we wanted to happen. But by having an artifact that is an objective document that says, and on this date, this is what we thought and this is what we decided. Now I've got the room reassembled, even if the people in the room are no longer there. And I no longer have to rely on somebody's memory or someone's bias to be able to assess whether or not it was the right choice. I've got facts to work with. And I can then decide for the next time, did what I thought happened, did it really happen? And maybe there was something new that it was experienced. Because decisions, after all, are based on the best information that is available in the time. So if you want to make better decisions, you want to have better information. And so that artifact now becomes something that you can use the next time you revisit that idea.
Wow, that's a lot. So the diversity at the table includes AI.
Well, it's got
Why
to.
not? It can.
Well, it can, and I know that for many people, AI is the boogeyman, and I get it. They,
Uh,
they they feel
it's a
uncomfortable
tool.
with the idea, but like you've been using AI and just didn't know it. I mean, that's AI is what tells you that when you go to the Amazon shopping cart, it tells you, since you bought that, you might want this too. And look, a lot of things on the list you actually do want. How does it know? Because it's using artificial intelligence. It's not the boogeyman that we think that it is. disruptions to processes have always been in place. It's just
Mm.
that corporate America right now is using AI as the excuse to be able to lay off people, and that provides them with, that provides people with fear. But AI has been there, and so if harnessed for good, it can do good. But we've got to allow ourselves the possibility to discover that it can do more than what we think that it would do. But it cannot, and so I believe this in my heart, it cannot take the place of deciding for us because AI can also give you garbage. You have to be watching to find out and to make sure you are responsible for the outcome. Just like as a leader, you are responsible for the decision. So it cannot take the decision from you. It can just help to pressure test to make sure that you hadn't forgot anything, that you did that the blind spot that you may have missed is actually seen. That is the power of AI, not the job killers that we are worried about, but
Right.
the thought partner that can help you get to a better decision.
Yeah. Brainstorming.
Hmm.
I've named Chat GPT Andy, so I'll have conversations with Andy.
Yeah,
So
no,
Andy, I'm thinking this. What do you think about that? I mean, but
and,
I'm not going to go do what Andy tells me. I'm just going to hear what he has to say.
Exactly, because you are still responsible, right? Like, look, AI can take notes in the meetings, but somebody still has to read them and make sure that what said was happening is going to happen. Your doctor could use AI to be able to help to be able to diagnose the problem, but until that person's name is signed to the prescription, it does not matter what was said on AI. It matters what was prescribed. And so and that's the governance part of AI that we just haven't gotten to yet. But like it can do a whole bunch more than what we would have been able to do. But listen, there was a time when people thought that Google was the devil, right? That, oh my goodness, you mean to tell me that you're not spending 40 hours researching books and putting them on your desk and writing out your sermon? You're Googling information. And like now Google has become a verb. And like and why wouldn't you use Google to be able to bring up information? Why wouldn't you? But look, it didn't mean the end of libraries. It didn't mean the end of reading books. Oh my goodness, the Kindle is going to, electronic reading is going. No, it didn't. People still want to be able to have a physical book, but it
Right.
created more opportunity for people to be able to. And so disruptive technology is okay, but we
Uh,
just have to embrace the change.
yes. Excellent. Okay. Well, I know we can talk forever on that, but we're going to move on to the second question. What makes you, Mr. Reverend Kevin Taylor, what makes you feel like you belong?
So, I feel like I belong when I'm in spaces where people are telling the truth, that we're talking about things that are purposeful, where responsibility matters more than performance. And so, for me, belonging is about bringing my full voice and my values and my lived experience to the table. It's less about fitting in, right? So, like again, as I shared. Before, born and raised in Michigan, right? Like I'm here live in New England and pastor in Western New York. Like I'm not native to any of those parts, right? But like that doesn't mean that I don't have something to say and that my experience doesn't matter. It just means that no, I hadn't been here for 40 years. My mama was not born in this church. My grandmama did not attend. And that's okay. But being able to respect those differences and to understand that there is then a unique blend that I have that may, and look, it's not for everybody. And I'm clear on that. Like I am not everybody's cup of tea, but I believe that to somebody, I am their tall glass of water. And so for that, I'm thankful. And so I just have to be me.
You know, people think we have to help people belong, but everybody doesn't belong everywhere.
It's true.
Um, and that's okay. It's not a judgment.
Nope.
It's just like everybody can't be everybody. You have
Nope.
to be who you are, and
Hmm.
God has your people. It's
Hmm.
finding your people and letting your people know that they matter and they're seen and heard and be a part of your life, your ministry, your what's there.
Yes.
Okay. Um, Third question. What is your favorite quote?
So my favorite quote comes from one of my heroes, and that is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he said of many things that he has said and is remembered for. but the favorite quote of mine is that if you can't fly, then run. And if you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. And when I say that that has been something that has um, helped me, that it may not have been all the ways that I wanted it to be. It may not have done all the things that I wanted it to do. But if we keep moving forward, we will reach our goal. And so flying might be easier, running might be better, walking might be the thing that you want to do, crawling might be better than what it was. But whatever you do, keep moving forward. And that's, I think that has been helpful to me both in ministry and in life.
I think the last word of that phrase, forward,
Mhm.
is important too, because you might run in the opposite
No,
direction.
that's true. Yep, that's true.
So the crawling, yes,
Mhm.
that reminded me of um, fighting the devil. Some quote, I can't remember it exactly, but to if you if you can't hit it, beat the bite the devil, and if you lose your teeth, gum him to death, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
I can't remember it, but that that is you just have to keep moving forward, and I mean, that's growth, that's sanctification,
Hmm.
right? When has this quote meant? I'm sure there are many times since it's important to you. Can you think of a story when this was what you held on to?
Yeah, I think, and so in many areas. I mean, I use this quote, to help others to process, past elections. I've used this quote for myself. I drive 2 hours to church in each direction every Sunday, and it's not, it's not, and it'll be 5 years next month. It's not been easy all the time, and I mean, I enjoy it. I'm in ministry. It is less than what I was doing, at a church where I travel 4 hours, right? But
Oh, okay.
the reality is that it's been hard, and it's been more than a notion, and I write about that in the book. But that even in even in the hard times, that moving forward is what we needed to be able to do. And one of the things that is mentioned in the book is this quote by one of my church members who says that change is a process, not an event. And so you begin to measure not by whether or not the check mark was made and that this situation was resolved, but instead on just and we got to stick it together. And so, yep, this person is mad at me today, but ooh, they had a death in their life, so they still get the sympathy card, they still get the call, they still get like they still get the thing. And the person who said that, that you get on my nerves, okay, well, I still have to love you. And so, and that person might very well be the one to be able to say that, oh, I'm so glad, Pastor, I'm so thankful, right? Because you have to keep moving forward. You can't let what has happened or transpired be the thing that keeps you from reaching your goal. And so it really is, it changes a process. It is not a event. It is not that I became the pastor and all of a sudden, the heavens opened and everything turned out well. No, that's just not how it worked.
Don't
Right.
we
Yeah,
wish?
right. And so, and look, but it didn't work that way for the Israelites either, right? And it didn't work that way for
Oh,
Jesus, and it didn't work that
right.
way. And so it's just the process. And so you have to allow yourself, to be in the moment, but also to be able to move forward. Like the children of Israel didn't make it into the promised land in the 40 days that it would have took. It took them 40 years. But look, they made it. And so, and it wasn't with Moses, it was with Joshua. And so, and that's okay too. And so the reality is that you just have to take every day as it comes, and this too shall pass.
Loving it. Wow, I think I could glean your wisdom for another episode or so. But before we close today, because we've come to that time, do you have any parting words for our listeners?
So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to you as the host. Thank you to your listening audience. I invite you. This is like just a little piece of in this conversation, but I invite you to go to my website where you can learn more about my books and about my thought process. You can sign up for individual coaching if you so desire, or want me to come and speak at your event or preach at your church. Happy to do that. My website website is revkttaylor.com. So that's REV as in Victor, K as in Kevin, T as in Tom, T as in Tom, AYLOR.com. And if you will mention this podcast, you will get 10% off of my coaching package simply because you listened to this podcast today.
Ooh, that is worth the gold. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And see, they had to listen all the way to the end
Yes,
to then
ma'am.
get
Yeah.
the icing.
We didn't say
Yes.
that from the start, right? We didn't, not from the very beginning. No.
Wow. Well, to my amazing guest, thank you,
Thank you.
Reverend Kevin T. Taylor. And to our listeners, belongers, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. This is Dea Irby with Here Where You Belong podcast, signing off. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Here Where You Belong. We hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace the beauty of belonging in your own life. Remember, no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. Join us again next time for more insightful conversations and heartwarming stories. Until then, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember that you belong.